Hey, you're watching Vinyl for Miles, your best resource for music and vinyl reviews. In this episode, we're going to be talking about The Crow. Stick around. Before we kick off this episode, I want to do a quick music shout out to Catatonia and the 10th anniversary release of their 8th album, Night is the New Day. What we have here is the double LP 180 gram on translucent red. What's cool about this is they completely redid the album cover and they added interviews and liner notes with the band explaining the process behind creating this record. This is definitely something to check out if you're a fan of progressive metal, melodic metal, and doom. This is right up your alley. Catatonia, Night is the New Day, 10th anniversary edition. So let's dive into this episode. We're talking about The Crow today. We're going to talk about all the vinyl releases you see behind me, the Record Store Day 2019 edition of the original soundtrack, and we're also going to talk about some other collectibles that I picked up over the years. I've been a fan of The Crow for over 2 decades now. I'm obsessed with it. The first time I read a comic, the first time I saw the movie, I could not put it down. I could not stop watching. The Crow had its first public appearance in 1989 with the comic by the same title, The Crow. The Crow was created by James O'Barr with the tragic events of losing his fiancée to a drunk driving accident. She was unfortunately hit by a drunk driver and passed away. He took out his grief, anger, and depression through the comic book The Crow. Since 1989, it's become a cult classic. Copies of his comic have flown off the shelf. There is a movie made after it. There's actually many movies made after it, but I would highly recommend seeing the first movie. And what we have here is something I was excited to pick up when it came out, and it is the special edition of The Crow. And what it did was compile the first few issues into a nice graphic novel. The artwork has been remastered. It's crystal clear. It's all in black and white. There's also a foreword from James O'Barr explaining the process behind creating The Crow, the original release. So The Crow special edition graphic novel, check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to the other room so you guys get a better view of what I have here and what I'm going to show you. All right, guys, welcome back. So there was quite a few requests for me to do a Crow episode, particularly people were interested in the Record Store Day 2019 edition of the Crow soundtrack we have here. I delayed this episode a little bit on purpose because I was trying to obtain a copy of the original score. I found one on Discogs, but unfortunately it was lost in the mail and it finally just showed up last week. We can start with what everyone wanted to hear and see, which is the 2019 edition of the Record Store Day release of the original soundtrack from The Crow. This is extremely true to the original CD. They came out in, I think, 1994. You can see on the cover we have the Crow logo from the movie, the Crow in the actual font that's in the comics and on the movie. It says Brandon Lee up top, original motion picture soundtrack. Nothing crazy special on the cover. Then we flip into the inside of the gatefold. We have some stills from the movie, the entire cast credits, and then we have each one of the track listings here in a very, very 90s fashion. On the back, we have another promo picture from the movie. This is actually on the poster for the movie here of Brandon Lee walking in the rain. Has all of the track listings here. This is exactly the same as the release that came out in 1994. So let's go ahead and check out the records. All right, so here we go. We have Side A and Side B, which is on solid white. This is on non-180 gram, so it's a little flexible on the disc. I think it's about 140 or 120. I will say it looks pretty clean, having the white variant with the white label. It just says The Crow, the track listing Side A, then when you flip it over, the same thing, Side B with all the track listings on it. Sound quality, pretty decent. It could be a little better. When you go to Side C and D, we get to solid black. Again, this is non-180 grams, so this is about 120 or 140. Unfortunately, my second disc was warped. Yeah, that's right, it was warped. Nothing special here, it's the same label. Then you have the last 4 tracks on this here, and then what's cool, the one special thing they did do was they put a laser etching on the back of the Crow logo from the motion picture. And this is pretty cool. I mean, it's highly reflective, and it's a matte finish where the Crow logo is. Very cool, but my copy, if you look here, it's warped. Do you see how it bounces when I push on it? So when I play it side C like this, it's bowed upward. I have to use a record weight to straighten it out. Overall, as big of a Crow fan as I am, I'm really disappointed in this release. I mean, it's really cool that it's the first time we can get every track on the soundtrack on vinyl, but they could have done so many more cool things with it. And I'm going to show you some other stuff I have in my collection that is way cooler than this. All right, so while we're talking about the movie, this is what held up my video when I was waiting for it. This is the original score soundtrack to the movie The Crow from 1994. What's really cool about this, and what they could have totally done for Record Store Day, is they added a brand new cover in its artwork that was inspired by The Crow. This came in 2 editions. There was a Devil's Night edition, which was clear with red and yellow splatter, kind of like to fire it up for Devil's Night. And then there was also a 180 gram black edition, which is what I have. And notice what I just said there. The score that was made by a much smaller company than the original soundtrack, they pressed it on 180 gram. It's like, why couldn't they do that with the 2019 edition? Anyways, so what we have here on the cover is some brand new artwork. When you flip it over, we have the logo from The Crow. And what's cool about this logo is it actually includes the eyes. The 2019 edition that they did for Record Store Day, they took the eyes out for some reason. Eric Draven, The Crow, can actually see through the eyes of the crow. That's why they put the eyes on the original logo. So really cool that the original score kept that. And then if you look at the inside insert, we have the original poster for The Crow, for the motion picture. And on the back, again, it's the same exact thing that came on the VHS release, the DVD release, the Blu-ray release. It has all the credits for the movie on the back. So here we have the black, it's on 180 gram. It has the logo from the publishing company here with all the soundtrack titles, same thing on the back. They just flipped the colors, black and red. Sound quality is okay. This is a pretty noisy record. I was stoked it was on 180 gram, but it really didn't do anything to improve the audio quality. And the copy I got, I don't know if it was in storage for quite a while or what. It's a little scuffed up, so I'm gonna have to do a deep clean on this to get it sounding good. But overall, it's really cool for the nostalgia factor to have the original score, to put it on. And I thought the packaging was really awesome, especially with the new artwork. I mean, again, this was inspired by a comic book, so it's pretty cool that they commissioned an artist to redo the cover here. So this is the score. Check it out. I'll put a link below, the Discogs link. And if you can find the Devil's Night edition, definitely get that one because that looks really cool. All right, so the next record in my collection we're gonna talk about with The Crow is Fear and Bullets. This is by far, out of all these releases, this is the coolest release. What this is a collaboration between James O'Barr and Trust Obey. So what happened with this was James O'Barr got together with John Bergen, who's behind Trust Obey, and they basically wrote the soundtrack to the first comic. It's highly industrial, you get some metal on there, some atmospheric. It's meant to line up exactly with the comic. This edition we have here is, I guess it's kind of like the best of Trust Obey's Fear and Bullets. So what you get is 8 selections from the soundtrack. You have an awesome illustration of the crow on the cover, and this sticks to the graphic novels and comics. On the back, a picture of Shelley, Trust Obey Fear and Bullets Special Edition. This is what I have here, and this came out through Enjoy the Ride Records. They're pretty famous for releasing like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and a few other pop culture type soundtracks. It came with the first ever drawing of the crow by James O'Barr, and this is signed from 1980. Pretty cool. This is 9 years before the first comic came out. So that's the very first picture we've ever seen of the crow. Definitely something for collectors out there. The insert, you get another illustration on here. I think it goes this way, another illustration right here of the crow, and you get a foreword from James O'Barr and from John Bergen on the process behind creating this record. Of all of the Crow releases, they did the coolest variants for this. They had black and white smoke, and then there was black smoke, and they had red and white splatter that looked kind of like blood. There's all kinds of different versions, but what I have here is white smoke. And on side 1, we have an amazing illustration of the crow in black and white. Looks to be on charcoal. Really cool white smoke with clear. It's on 180. On the back here, on side 2, another illustration of the crow. And the soundtrack is super cool, and once you put it on, it's definitely unique. There's some scary or haunting sounds on this, I guess you can say, on the side 2. So what we get here is side 1 is more industrial metal, and then on the back side it's more ambient kind of soundtrack type music. The very end of it though has a loop that I think it says "Bring Her Back." I'll see if I can play it for you guys, but there's an infinite loop at the very end that is very creepy. The first time I put this on, I was listening to it and I left the room for a minute, and it just kept looping over and over and over again. Alright, so that's what I have when it comes to vinyl. The next thing I want to show you, you may think it's vinyl, but it's not. This is a Laserdisc. My mom, who also got me this McFarlane action figure here, she picked this up for one of my birthdays way back when, and I think she originally thought it was a record, but it turns out it's a Laserdisc. Alright, so here you go. Here's the Laserdisc. It's the same dimensions as a record. But what's cool about these, it's basically a giant DVD. You would stick these into Laserdisc players. We used to have them at my school, and a bunch of my friends had them in the 90s. But you would just stick it in, you watch the first half, and then you flip over the movie, put in the second half. It's just like a VHS. So the fact that I was able to grab a copy of this, or that my mom was able to grab me a copy of this to put into my collection, is super cool. Okay, so the last piece of my collection I wanted to just quickly show you guys was this McFarlane toy of Eric Draven. This is one of the most realistic action figures I've ever seen. I have quite a few figures from McFarlane Toys, but this really captures Brandon Lee's interpretation of the Crow exactly how it was. This is one of the coolest action figures I have in my collection. This has gone in my office through about 5 moves. No matter where I go, I put this in my home office. It's always on the shelf. This goes along with a painting I have in my office as well. I'm going to show you guys right now. This painting was actually done by a girl named Maddie. She helped us with my band's music video for the Avenger that we put together. I'm going to show some clips of it right here. She basically painted this entire painting upside down of Brandon Lee, and then at the very end of the video she flipped it right side up to reveal the picture. She's gone on to create an escape room in San Diego with her husband. I'm going to put some of that information below too. But this was my Crow collection. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any takeaways, I mean, I don't mean to be negative on the record store day release, but my copy was warped. I thought solid white and solid black was just kind of boring. There was so much more they could have done. As you can see from the other 2 releases I showed you on vinyl, they did a lot more with it. And the fact that the record store day edition was so much more expensive than the other 2. So at least I'm glad I have it. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'll still listen to it. It's an amazing soundtrack. You guys need to check it out. It was a perfect piece to my collection, and I'm going to continue to collect because the popularity of the Crow is still growing. There's still comics being made. There's all kinds of movies out there. If you check any of the movies out, watch the first one. I mean, the other movies are okay, but the first one is legendary. Alright guys, thanks for watching. My name is Michael. This is Vinyl for Miles. If you enjoyed my video, go ahead and give me a subscribe and a like. In the comments below, let me know, did you get a copy of the Crow? What was the quality on your copy, the record store day edition? Was any of yours warped? Did you guys have any issues? Let me know below. Alright, thanks for watching.